right, welcome to another episode of Men in Marriage. This is season 3. My name is Lamar Dixon. I'm your host. This is episode number 4. Today I have guest the Reverend Dr. Omaràn Lee. He is the pastor of New Work Fellowship in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Welcome, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you having me here, Lamar. It's been a long time. Lamar, man, I've been waiting to get on this show. I've been watching you and checking out what's going on. I said, man, maybe one day I'll be so blessed to get on the show with you, man. And when the call came, I was really excited about it. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate you for taking on the call, actually. And I'm glad that you've been taking a look at the show and eager to get on. That gives me hope.
You're doing your thing,
I'm
man.
doing my thing.
You're doing your thing. Yeah. We need more of our story being told, and the community in the world to really see that we're out here doing positive things.
Absolutely.
There's good fathers, there's good families that are really growing and serious about marriage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm stoked about being a part of what you got going on today.
No, good. Now, again, I appreciate you for jumping on this podcast with me today. Is there anything else that you want the people to know before we jump into everything?
Well, sure, man. I like to consider myself a clergy member, counselor, connector, convener, and champion. And so I have a mental health practice, Centers for Wellbeing. I've been doing premarital counseling now for probably about 10 years and doing marital counseling, and then also individual anger management and some anxiety stuff and a few other things. As I just recently finished my doctoral work at Memphis Theological.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And pastoral therapy. And so really looking to delve more into that. I'm the director of spiritual care for Nashville General Hospital just as well. So a few hats, man, doing several things. And but this right here is like key to me because promoting marriage and promoting the sanctity of that is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you said, you got many hats. And with those many hats, I know that there's got to be some space left between you and your wife, as you just mentioned about marriage, so to make sure that everything is still, saying tight-knit and everything.
Absolutely, man. And, we are pretty intentional about our connecting in many different ways. Like this morning, I'm coming fresh from our morning workout. We did our walk around the neighborhood and just talked about a few things, what our plans are, what the day looks like,
right.
So we definitely try to make time for each other before everything else and do that first.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely most important.
Absolutely. Good segue into the reason why we are having this podcast, actually. So, of course, this is called Men in Marriage. The purpose of this podcast is to encourage other married people, specifically men, to make sure that we are sharpening each other, to make sure that you just said the sanctity of marriage is a spiritual thing, and make sure that we're committed to each other. And there's highs and lows within this marriage thing, but we want to make sure whenever you hit a low point that you're not just easy to throw in the towel, right. Because there's a vows, there's a commitment between you and your wife and to God, and you don't want to mess any of that up. So one of the things that I've always told people is that one of the time when I got engaged, everybody was like, "Hey, are you sure? Are you sure you want to get married? Marriage is hard work," but they never told me what the hard work is. So that's one of the purposes of this podcast, is to let people know what the hard work is. And if you can get anything from this podcast or this conversation that I'm having with different people, is that there is going to be highs and lows, but you can get through it.
Absolutely. And it just takes that work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll have 3 questions, and I asked everybody with every guest the same 3 questions because everybody has different perspectives and different answers, and there's no wrong answer, of course. So we'll go through 3 questions. After those 3 questions are over, then I'll open up the podcast for any open discussion that you want to have. You can ask me some questions. We can talk about anything else that's going on with you or within the world or anything like that, and then that'll be it, pretty much.
Sounds good to me.
Are you ready to dive into some of these questions?
Let's get to it.
All right. So the first question is, what legacy do you want you and your wife to leave?
Man, that's a great question. I feel like legacy now has become a wave for people not really understanding what that's about, or just hearing it and thinking about it's what's the things that are accumulated that's left. And those things are very important, because as you grow, you want to establish something so that it makes it a little easier for the next generation.
Right.
And so first thing that I think it might sound corny, it might sound like scripted, me being a pastor, is that leave a legacy of loving God, right? That our kids are yoked to God, and that everything that they do, they understand that God is theocentric, and what you do always should pour into what God has designed for your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be walking in purpose to serve God, not to be the recipient.
Okay.
You know, and so in that, it's like, how do we make our plans? How do we plan out our days, and we plan out our months, and then our years? You know, we do those things like we do some estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
How do we divide up amongst our kids? And so we're on the mindset of like, we set up a trust last year after coming out of the pandemic. We knew it was something we needed to do. We had already had the life insurance policies and all of that type of stuff, right? But we set up the trust because it's like, man, tomorrow truly isn't promising. It was like hitting you right in the face. So like we set up we're moving it to a dynastic trust, or kind of like a 360 type thing, where it's the kids don't ever get any of the stuff because we don't want them fighting over those things, but for them to have it, and it perpetually takes care of them, and that they have the opportunity to see it, use it, and grow into it for their children and their children's children. A lot of that was birthed out of my lineage of how I grew up. My great-grandfather was an amazing man. His name was William D. Laws, and he went to Fisk. That's what sparked me to go to Fisk.
Got you.
He was a lawyer, didn't quite get there, but he worked in the community and was very staunch in his faith. And I never got to know the man, but I grew up in one of his homes.
Mm-hmm.
So what he left allowed me to have roof and shelter, allowed me to have something to strive for and all of that. And so I wanted to make sure that we shored those things up for our family and for the kids and for our generations yet to come. The Bible is real simple as it talks about leaving a legacy or leaving something for your children's children, right? And so when we think about that, everything I do is not for me. It's not even for my kids at this point. It's for their children.
Right.
So that changes the mindset of how I present myself, what I project, how I enter rooms. This thing that we do as a family, we're dim Lees, you know. You see our hashtags everywhere is dim Lees, right? And we promote that seriously by having the kids understand that you are a Lee.
Right.
That means something. When
Absolutely.
you walk in, you got a name that goes before you,
Mm-hmm.
and it means that you give your best in school, you give your best to your friends, to your family, you give your best in service. Everywhere you go, your name goes before you.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that mind, construct, it puts you in a place of saying that I'm building a legacy, and my kids also, they get it and they start to ride the wave. So it protects the brand, protects the legacy.
Right.
What is it now? The society likes to put everything on the brand,
brands,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but branding is nothing but legacy building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that with family, my wife and I are on the same page that we're trying every day to, read our Bible more, be more intentional in our prayer, be more intentional with the time that we spend with each other and with our kids. So that way it's something that is innate.
Right.
Yeah. So
I want to back up, and that two things caught me whenever you was talking. One is that was it your grandfather or your great-grandfather?
My great-grandfather.
So your great-grandfather planted a seed into the family that you reaped the reward of that he wasn't able to see.
Never saw.
Man, isn't that a blessing?
A super blessing, man.
Yeah. So what struck me was that I have a question talking about legacy, and here your great-grandfather was planting seeds way back then that you reaped the benefit of, and now we're talking about a legacy that you're but you're preparing your children's children for something that you're doing right now.
Correct.
Great.
Correct. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like I've got a mentor, and I'll leave his name out right now, but he used to tell me he and his father would ride around North Nashville, and they would look at the properties that they own. He'd point out and he'd tell him historical facts about what was going on. They would do this every Saturday. And to see who he is now and how he moves, it speaks totally to how telling those stories continues to push him forward and carry the legacy, the name that he stands on, and how serious that is.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that resonated with me, and I was like, well, I have to continue to tell my kids the stories. And I think back about it, like my mom would tell me the stories. My grandmother would tell me the stories, you know, and would constantly keep in front of me, this is where you come from. You know, it may not look like what everybody else said or anything else, but this is who you are. And for whatever it is, you are the keeper of it. Before Omaràn was born, I always, you know, put it as that I'm the last Lee standing, you know, so it's for me to repopulate, re-energize, and regrow that line,
Exactly.
right? And so now, you know, he's got some broad shoulders, you know what I'm saying? So he'll be able to hold that up.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Actually, another thing just popped into my head when you were talking about that. So first, I'm gonna go back to the second thing that popped up,
Sure.
and it was talking about the brand of the name Lee, or even the brand of the name Dixon, which is a legacy of our generations, our people, I would say. So I want to tie that back into the Bible, saying that your name meant something. So if you had a good namesake, and say I'm my father's son, right? And I went somewhere to another town or something like that, and it's like, well, who your people? Well, I'm the son of Charles Dixon. I know Charles. That's a good name. So you, by his character, they now know what type of character that I have. So going back to legacy, you were talking about your grandfather who left something for you, and you leaving something for your kids and your kids' kids, because it means something.
I'm gonna bring it forward one generation.
Yeah.
How real what you're talking about. When Heather and I bought our first home, we bought it in a nice section of the hood, but nice section of town. Ranch style house, 1 acre, and the next door neighbor. Now, you know, I don't always present, you know, like I'm a pastor.
Right.
I like to who and what I am. It should exude. Christ should be seen in me.
Exactly.
Not by my outward.
The title.
Yeah. No, you should know that there's something going on, right? And I try to carry that. So anyway, we're checking out the house, and the neighbor comes out. Like any real good neighbor, who are these people looking at this house?
Right.
And the guy and I strike up a conversation, and we're talking, and come to find out he's from my grandmother and my grandfather's hometown. What does he say? Who's your people?
Right.
And I tell him my grandfather's James Richard Lee. He's like, he calls him by his nickname, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's my grandfather. He's like, oh, you good people.
Right.
You want me to take the sign out the front yard? I said, no, man. If it's for us to have, we're going to get this house, you know? And so that right there, I was like, man, someone did something before I got here.
Absolutely.
And I'm standing on that.
Man.
There's no money involved in that. There's no credit involved in that. It's about my moral and my character that happened before, right?
Yep.
So I have to be at least as good as that, you know?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So man, I like how everything's tying together because it's so true.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are some people whose names doesn't carry that same type of weight because of whatever reason. But hopefully, if anybody who's watching or listening to the podcast, it can start with you. It takes one person for everything to domino.
It takes and it's just one action, right? You know what I'm saying? You can choose to do the righteous thing. I won't say the right thing or the wrong thing, but the righteous thing, the thing that is actually kingdom building, the thing that has God at the core of it, the thing that where mercy and where grace is extended, where favor is there. All of those things come from us. It's out of the fruits, right? Kindness, charity, and love. Those things. If you exude that, then what happens? Someone else, it's a ripple effect. It touches them, just like you said, a domino. It happens, and so now it'll come back.
Right.
We look at Eastern faith and religions. Folks want to start talking about karma and everything, but even outside of that, just it being Christ centered, it becomes reciprocal. It is how we relate and be part of this whole story, and we leave a legacy.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. One other thing that that hit me, you talking about, you put together, you and your wife, a trust. So everybody knows about life insurance, but not everybody knows about the trust.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate anything, not to go deep into what you all got going on, but what is the difference, or can you even speak on what's the difference between the life insurance and the trust?
So there's a little, keep in mind, I'm what you would call, I know enough information to be dangerous, but that's when I turn to the professionals
Absolutely,
and have them tap
absolutely.
in, right?
Yep.
So you got three pieces that you're talking about in that. You have life insurance, then you have a will, and you have a trust. Life insurance, everybody should have it because you shouldn't have to scrape together at the end of the day
Mm-hmm.
to bury your loved one or to see how folks are going to take care or be all right after that level of income leaves, right? So you want to try to set that up. The other thing is that I don't see life insurance for people of our diaspora. Look at life insurance as we want to make sure that we send mama or daddy off right.
Right.
Well, if paying X amount of dollars is going to send them off right, but then you're going to be in the lurch the next day, that's not really smart. That's not prudent, and a good use of the resources that someone has been paying month over month for years to make sure that there is something left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with life insurance, man, you have to look at it. There's a couple of different tiers of it. You've got whole life, you've got term policies, and then and it gets that's where I get muddy with it after
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
Like for myself, I've chose to do some term stuff because I also believe in my grit.
Mm-hmm.
That at some point I'm just gonna have to I'll be at the income level that where they'll be stable.
Right.
I will put away enough that
Right.
they'll be stable. But should it happen before that comes, I went with a term, but went with whole lives on all the kids and some universal policy so that they're covered. All of those are put into our trust.
Okay.
So now the trust, when unfortunately we all will die, when with mine in the term, should I die before it expires, then that's going to fully be funded into the trust.
The trust. Okay. Okay.
And that those funds won't be able to be touched by anybody or whatever because my states
You
will
can
be
put
settled.
You can spend specific terms on those.
Around that
Yep.
stuff, right? And so now the kids stand to be at a certain place.
Mhm.
My wife stands to be at a certain place, and her homes are taken care of. She doesn't have to worry about that type of thing, right? Because the grieving process, man, I'm telling you something else. Segue. My dad died last year,
Mhm.
so it's 9 months now, man. That it's coming on 9 months, right? And so it's the grieving process. Having been there for people grieving, and then experiencing it is a different thing.
Right.
But it ebbs and it flows, and it can take you away from work. It can
Right.
take you away from other things that you need to do or that you want to do in that. So you don't want your family to have to suffer through that.
Right. Right.
The next piece, when we're talking about it, is a will,
Mhm.
right? Now, wills are good if that's all you can do and that's where you are, but it's still got to go to probate court because the will has to have the opportunity to be contested and all that stuff or whatever. It's not your final say. Versus where with the trust, there is no contesting. What's in there is in there. It's
Yeah.
not coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Can't nobody get to it except for who was supposed to go to. And then we went a step further. We made sure that in our trust we have our living will stuff set up, which is the how we want to if
Divvy up assets and stuff like that.
no. That this is when you are see you're hospitalized or something.
Oh,
Or
okay.
where you have a DNR or whatever. I've got certain family members that's responsible for my quality of life.
Correct.
Should I be incapacitated?
Right.
And then I have certain family members are actually the two persons that's over the fiscal part or the fiduciary part of it are very close friends of mine who work in the fiduciary environment
Right.
to ensure that my kids and my wife resources are not squandered and they're
Right,
managed
right.
well, right? And then it's almost like the way we did it was like setting it up like the United States or like any competent body of government where it has checks and balances.
Right. Right.
So one can't move without the other.
Right.
They're not of the same household, and like my kids, if something happened to both Heather and I, they go to their godparents, and then the resources go with them
Right,
too.
right.
So it's it can seem convoluted and confounding, but man, it's just trying to make sure that you leave something, the opportunity that I don't want my kids to have to really do student loans.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be. I want to be able to. With my daughter, when my eldest or when my youngest, when they marry, I want to make sure that I can actually pay for the wedding.
Right.
When they're ready to buy a house, I can put them in a house or put down significantly.
Exactly,
As a
exactly.
great gift. So trying to be forward thinking, because before you know, what we've been rocking for about 25, 30 years now, right?
Right.
Well, 25, 30 years would seem like yesterday to us.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And we look up, it's going to be another 25, 30, and then what will I have to say that I put to the side?
Exactly. No, I appreciate all that good information because not everybody knows what you just said. So I know about the will, which I have, and the life insurance policy, which I have. I knew of a trust, but I don't have one. But just because we're having this conversation right now, it's going to be a conversation for me and my wife to have now.
Hey, man, and I got a great guy that I can put you on to. I'm telling you, with what you and LaShawn are doing, man, tie that thing in there, because you want to make sure that everything is ironclad and that there's no falling out of bickering. Because I'm telling you, man, as a pastor, when I do these funerals, you know, families fall out instead of falling in a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so if you can remove some of the weight of having to worry about the money and the things, then they can truly, you can be there for them and they can be there for each other in the grieving process and in the hurt and in the despair, the parts of where they feel like the abandonment, the rapid or the life-changing abandonment that happened.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand everything that you just said, and we'll talk again, you know, offline. But I appreciate you for giving that information, because again, I'm learning just by listening to you right now. So that's good, and hopefully people who are listening and watching also are learning something new, and it sparks something in them to want to leave something for their generations after this coming after them. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I want to pause real quick because I did something. I skipped over something.
Okay.
In the very beginning when I introduced you. The number of years that you and your wife have been married.
We will be married July 1st. 17 years.
17 years, man. Congratulations on that.
Brother.
You know, I mean, every guest I try to do that in the very beginning because it's men in marriage.
Right.
And
that's right.
I want to make them. You want to talk about how many years of marriage that you actually been in. So you've been 17 years as a veteran married man.
Man, I don't know about a veteran, but I'm telling you, I do have some scars. Okay, there's been some days, but I would say it's maybe I could count them on. I couldn't count them all on 10 fingers. You know what I'm saying? But we've had some struggles, but man, to God be the glory, really, with it, you know, because it's only made us stronger. It's been like a proofing, you know what I'm saying, at times.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the purpose of this podcast is iron sharpens iron. You've been married for 17. I'm 9 years for myself. So you know some things that I don't know, or I may know some things. You know, everybody's relationships are different, but still, we're we're close enough that we can actually call on each other and say, hey, everything's all right, you're good, and then we have this platform right here where we're making sure that the other people who may not have someone to call and talk to know that you're not the only one that's going through stuff.
Absolutely. I think to that point, I don't want to derail. We can come back to this, but that's important that we be open enough to share our story and be open enough to talk to each other. Because that's when we find out that, man, I'm not the only one that's experiencing that. You know, it hits different. You know, it's like, okay, this isn't new. You know, this isn't a novel thing. It is happening around, and so how do we? Then you can start to formulate a plan of attack and find a good solution. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was all on question number one about talking about legacy, unless you want to talk or touch on anything else.
No, brother, let's keep it rolling.
All right, man. So we're going to go into question number two, which I think is a very good one. Question number two is, what have you learned about you since being married?
He's a complicated man and no one understands him but his woman. Man, in all truthfulness though and sincerity, I'm learning that I'm an evolving creature.
As we all are.
Not that I change. It's not changing. It's not that I'm not who I was yesterday or 17 years ago. I'm evolving, and there's a lot of nuances in that. Age and ability. Children, status and education, all of those things keep moving, and those are not changes. That's evolutions, right? So how do I keep up with that? And then paying attention that my partner, my wife, my better part is experiencing the
Same
same
thing.
thing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, what I learned about myself specifically, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, is that was patience. I learned that about myself, and of course, we all, from a young age and being single and to getting married, patience looks different in each one of those levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, patience for me in marriage was learning about her. We knew a little about, we knew each other before we got married, but you don't really know somebody until you get married and you
Right.
start living with them every day to day.
Mm-hmm.
So some people told me that, they learn patience through their kids because
Mm.
their kids, test them whole lot. For me, it wasn't my daughter, it was my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew who she was, but I didn't know 100% of everything that happened before we got together. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that's what I'm still learning, and glad that I am. So we're at a good point to where I can say that I'm not quick tempered or quick to lash out or anything like that because I'm expecting certain things to happen a certain way, and then, so patience for me is what I've learned about myself.
That's good, man. That's good. As you talk about that, the patience, and you start talking about being quick tempered and lashing out, man, you hit me with all kind of rocks because I am a. If you know me, you know me. You know that, man. I'm quick witted. You know, I don't say that to like brag about it or anything, but those are some of my areas of need to grow, and really what that for me that goes back to this thing of expectations and having lofty expectations of people and of anything versus setting them where my expectations are just on me,
Right.
and learning to accept everyone. Talk about expectations. I think about this acronym, FEAR, false expectations are alternate realities, right? And if we look at what causes us to be angst or to make certain knee jerk reactions, there's a fear of something that's there, and sometimes it's just the unknown of what the outcome will be,
Right.
and because it wasn't anticipated, that wasn't the response I was
Right.
expecting or wanting, right? So I've been on this journey the past couple of weeks, man. I've been talking with some friends of mine, and there's this social work term that I want to share with you that's kind of helping me to reshape and form in my mind um, about it's called unconditional positive regard.
Okay.
I'm going to define it for you. Is unconditional positive regard is letting a person know that they are accepted and valued no matter what. Even if they're flawed human beings and can make mistakes, we still respect and care about them. So that I take that, and biblically I would just translate that to grace.
Right.
And then when I think about how we've laid grace out in the church and how we've laid it out in our religious context, we put grace into a box of it being pity. And that's not what grace
No,
is.
absolutely not.
You know, it's grace is love, right? So that, like, no matter how flawed an individual is or what they do, I still can have unconditional positive regard for them because they're people.
Right.
I'm a person.
Right.
I'm gonna make mistakes. Like we jump on celebrities when they get caught up doing something or they have something. We're ready to the cancel culture takes off, right? Well, were you there? Were
Right.
you involved in it? Or even if you were, what precipitated it? What's going on with that person, right? And so now that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be consequences or what have you that come with things, but it means that we can step back and just have some regard for them, and that it can be unconditional and it be positive. So I'm gonna still love you through it. And so we make it locus in the marriage when I'm expecting my wife to react or to do a certain thing and she doesn't, then should I? That's my expectation. That's my feeling. The best thing for me to do is to talk about it with her.
Right.
Open up, share, be honest, and instead of laying it out in a antagonistic way or attacking her about it, see what her perspective was. And then
Absolutely.
maybe the question is what part did I play?
Exactly.
Did I actually make clear what the expectation of what I was desiring to have happen?
Exactly.
And then when I can answer those questions, and somewhere in there's going to be a rock
Mm-hmm.
that's going to hit me upside the head and say, oh, yeah, I do play a part in this. I may have precipitated
Man,
this.
you unpacked a whole lot in just that in that whole thing. Grace, absolutely 100% agree with. So that's one thing that I had to learn. And expectations. Oh my gosh, I can talk about that all day. So as you are going into marriage, your expectations of marriage, if they're not communicated, you will hit walls
Man,
from both sides.
yes.
So
yes.
so it definitely communicate every expectation. Don't go into marriage also. I've been talking about this on a previous podcast with my father actually.
Okay.
Don't go into your marriage expecting it to go like somebody else's marriage.
Say that one more time. I don't think they heard
You know
you.
what I'm
Say that
saying?
one more time.
Don't go into your marriage expecting it to be like someone else's marriage.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
man, you unpacked a whole bunch, even with the what was the thing that you just read?
Unconditional positive regard.
Unconditional positive regard.
Yeah.
I like that, man. And again, so for me, it was knowing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I've learned so much about myself within these 9 years of being married, about who I am and how I react, and knowing to give my wife grace and love her in her moments of angst, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's expectations are different. Everybody's reactions to different things are different. However, I need to continually to check myself also to make sure that I am reacting a specific type of way that will not push her away. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My wife and I, we've grown, and Heather is my wife. She and I have grown to a place that where she'll tell me, like, you're a little loud, not hearing you, and so, and whatever that is, I have to recalibrate that.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And
That's
it helps. It doesn't feel good in the moment, but it feels better knowing that she's saying that she genuinely wants to hear me, and she needs me to take a beat and readjust, how I approach it.
Exactly. So I was reading something. I can't remember the exact. I was reading the Bible, but I was reading a chapter, and I can't remember. This was actually just yesterday, and I can't think of it right now. But the whole premise of it was basically love thy neighbor as you love yourself, which can means loving other people, including your wife, as you want to be loved. So don't treat her no different than you want to be treated. So if I'm lashing out or I have a bad day or anything like that, and I need to communicate those things to her so that way she's not caught off guard, and vice versa. So you go back, you were talking about unconditional love and things like that, and regard. Man, all of this plays into.
Man, so like, I was sharing with the membership of the church the greatest commandment, which is to love God with all of your heart, your mind, and your soul. And the second is likened unto it, to love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? We can look to do all kind of community service. We can go out and we can want to feed the homeless, go to the soup kitchen, take clothes to people, go down under the byways or whatever. But the neighbor is the one that is next door to us, the one that sleeps beside us, the one that's staying upstairs or down the hallway, the one that we're standing in line with at the grocery store that might not have enough.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or the person at work that is trying to get by, and maybe they've shared with you some stuff, but just to give them a smile and to care for them, right? The other side of the way I like to look at that scripture is that Jesus is telling us, love God with all of our heart, mind, and soul, and love our neighbor as ourselves. Now, even though self is the last part that's there, self is really the first part. Because if I don't love me, there's no way that I can love God nor anyone else. Because loving me says that God is in me and that I'm loving me enough to love God. And if I'm loving God enough, because God has given me the opportunity to be lovable, then I can love someone else.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's just the way that my mind works about that, and trying to make sure that that's a first, me putting me first.
Mm.
You know, you can't. We see in the wild that even like with birds, they may bring back food to the nest and everything for the babies to eat. There's no way you can tell me that the bird is taking the worm and regurgitating all of it.
Mm-hmm.
He had to get the worm, right? So he got him some. He's bringing it back to the kids, right?
Right.
So you have to be first. If you're the provider, if you're the one, the protector, and if you're the one that's the nurturer, you have to make sure that you are okay
Mm-hmm.
before you can try to make sure someone else is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in your being okay, others are going to be.
Agree. One thing that I say is that marriage is definitely about service.
Yes.
So I'm here to serve my wife and serve my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, I say that a lot, but I never go back and I never say what you just said is that about me. Like if I'm not good first, I cannot serve them.
Right.
So I 100% agree.
Man, it's not possible. And it's crazy because we get caught up in the whirlwind of providing, being legacy driven, and all of these things and strappings of society that says that this is what a good family and a good man and a good marriage is supposed to look like. And we paint this picture with everything outside around it.
Mm-hmm.
And on the inside, we're left
Right.
with a void, you know? So yeah, so I try to start with me at every occasion, and what the way that we have put strappings on Christianity and on faith now is that to think about myself or to be selfish is poor. It's bad. It's a bad construct, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's actually more selfless, because if I'm good, I can make sure others are good.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah.
My brother was actually just saying the same thing. He said, I'm very selfish, and I'll let you know that I'm selfish.
Yeah.
But me being selfish, I'm not selfless.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah.
Anything else on the second question in regards to what you learned about yourself and since being married for your longevity?
This kind of ties both to the first question and the second one. Like, I've started trying to be more conscious about my health, eating a little better, working out a little bit more, you know, because I've gotten to an age now that where like things just don't pop back like it's supposed to.
Not
you know
as
what I'm saying?
quick.
You know, I don't.
It pop,
I,
but not as
it
quick.
pop, but it might pop the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? You know, I got to stretch in the morning before I get out of bed. I got to stretch at night before I get into bed. I mean, come on, man. You know, and so it ties into a place of like, I have to do this if I want to really live out the legacy I'm planning.
Right.
You know, if I want to be here to my daughter, bless her heart. Iris is so golden, man. She'll tell me time to time. I try to catch her and record it when she's saying it. She's like, Dad, you're great. You've got a great family. You've got a great job. You do so many wonderful things for so many wonderful people. You pour into everything. You have wonderful home. You got beautiful kids. You have everything, Dad. You don't need to do anything else. You're great.
Man, that's so good to hear. Man, I would be in tears. I would be in tears hearing my daughter say that.
Man, I'm telling you, just her insight and her perception, right? And I'm like, okay. I said, and we were having this one conversation about me and me trying to work on my body composition because, you know, the lower part of my torso is extending further than the upper part of my torso. And so she's like, you're perfect. I said, baby, that's great. But Daddy's trying to be prepared to play with your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that deaded it. I mean, we were going round and round, but when I hit her with that one, it was like, challenge, I won. Right? Yeah, she was like, I understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's good to have the dialogue with your children so they know exactly that you're bringing them along for the ride as well. So they understand and you're planting seeds. So that way, when they get of age, they're thinking about the name, the brand for legacy. They're thinking about who they want to be when they're growing up so they can start thinking about also doing the same things that you're doing to continue the legacy and plant seeds in their kids because you planted the seed in them.
Right. One of the things we did, just looking at legacy planning and promotion of them being built. Well, Omaràn just turned 13 last year, and we did this. Will may have told you he came, and we did this whole big thing of a rites of passage. I wrote out a rites of passage program for him, And I had been grooming him for the past year and a half, telling him, you're getting ready to turn into a man and things are going to be expected of you.
Right.
And your name and these things. And so one of the lessons that we taught him in that was that you have more receptors than you do projectors.
Mm.
Meaning that you have two eyes, you have two nostrils, you have two ears, you have two hands, 2 feet. You have more. You have two halves of your brain. You have more receptors than you do projectors, and your only projector that you have is your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So be mindful of using those in what you're trying to do. And so teaching him that, taking him through that passage, the whole little ritual and everything, is something that I'm expecting him to pass to my grandson, because
Right.
some guys from the community gave that to me when I
Right.
was his age.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's all of those pieces that go into building that.
Absolutely.
And you want to see it come back.
It's all good information, man.
Yeah.
And I love it. The conversation is good, man.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move on to the
No,
last
man,
question?
let's get to the last question, baby.
So I'm gonna give you the last question, and I'm gonna give you some context behind it as
Okay,
well. So
okay.
the last question is, how have you helped your partner, your wife, go through or get over any trauma, and vice versa? How has she helped you get over any trauma? And the context is, so I was watching this TV show, this movie. I really need to find out what the heck I was watching because I
Okay.
can't remember. It was a couple who got married.
Mm-hmm.
They had some things happen to them in their past. They got married, and whatever happened to them in their past, on both of them, the man and the wife, it started to cause friction in their marriage. And they never talked about what had happened before they got married. So that was the reason for me asking this question, because I thought it was a good question, because there's a lot of things that happened in our past. It could have been yesterday, honestly, and while we're married, things that happen to us that affects the way that we react, expect other people to react, who builds our internal character and things like that. So that was the premise of the question, because a lot of people don't talk about things that may have happened to them that they're holding on to.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, couple of things. First, we started our marriage off with premarital counseling, to begin the process of conversation. Heather's a couple of years older than me. I tease her all the time. I'm like, did you ever think that? Because Heather was in high school when I was in the 6th grade, 7th grade. I was like, you ever think you'd be dating a 6th grader? Let alone married to one. But what I'm saying to that is that she already had adult and life experiences that I had yet to begin,
Right.
at a certain point. And us talking about that stuff has helped us. Yet, the longer you stay together, there's still more layers that you don't get to till further down the road.
True.
And things that may not reveal themselves until you get further down the road. And so, on both sides. And what I've tried to always promote is that first we be open and we be honest. We tell each other everything. Do we tell each other everything? Probably not. I mean, but it's a work in progress, right?
Right.
Because it's you bring the historical data and the past trauma of how it was received the last time I told you something, right? And so we try to be very open and honest with each other. Talk to each other frequently. We touch each other frequently. We share affirmations with each other frequently, so that we know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, this person's in my corner. The other thing is man, we talk about therapy like it's for real. Like, with me being a therapist, I'm like, yeah, I'm not your therapist, I'm your husband. And so, and she recognizes that strongly. And so she, she seeks out therapy. She talks to somebody, she reads books and things for herself, for her own growth.
Right.
And I vice versa, do the same. And now I will say I sometimes pour and share a little bit too much for her. But she's learning to grow and to say, hey, need saturated here.
Right.
It's a little bit much. And then I have to honor that and say, man, I appreciate you for stopping me and don't mean to burden you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's that. Coming to the conversation knowing that we're flawed. So then we're and that we're scarred.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk about it. And knowing that it's not this thing that's happening right now, this is just a trigger.
Right.
This is not what the real issue is. So as a buddy of mine told me years ago, what's the real sock in the floor? He was like, you know, if your wife don't get mad about your socks in the floor, but then all of a sudden she's upset about it, that's not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's something much deeper, right?
Right.
And so we try to drill down to that, and then, like I said, we seek out support on our own individually with therapists, and then we also talk to other married couples, sometimes together and apart. But you know, we anything that's pertaining to us directly, we take that to therapy.
No, I think that's good. I think therapy is definitely a good way to express and get to some of the things that you may have buried.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking, whether it's with a licensed therapist or even just your spouse or a homeboy or homegirl or whoever, therapy comes in many different ways that all that stuff can come out of. So I tried to go to therapy for one time, but I didn't find the right therapist. But since then, the communication that I have between me and my wife has gotten a whole lot better. So I haven't seeked it out a second term, but I still think that we're, like you just mentioned, we're a growing work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
And as we continue to live this life and continue to open up with each other, there are layers. There are definitely layers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that through natural progression of time, that we will eventually get to know absolutely every single thing that we can remember that has happened to us in our life, and be able to share that with our loved ones, which is good.
Absolutely. I would encourage you. I mean, and you know, you lifted up something that a lot of us, a lot of persons in our community, and if I wasn't in the work, I'd have the same drawbacks. Finding the right therapist. You know, I'm working with an organization now, and that builds the referrals or the source resources that where we can find persons that, if you might want someone that looks like you, or someone of the same gender, or someone of the opposite gender, whatever it is that you're looking for, there's a platform. You know, it's Black Mental Health Villages that has them listed there. Psychology Today has those there. You can put it in and look for those persons. But I think that, like, I would say every person should have them a therapist, because it doesn't mean anything is off or wrong with you. That doesn't mean that it means that you have a sounding board to talk to. That take like this for me as a pastor. There's some things I can talk to some of my friends who are not clergy, and they would be in utter shock or dismay. Wow, you're the man of God. Right. You have that worry? I'm like, I'm a man like you, right?
Right.
Or they may not say it, but then begin to judge, and then or get to feeling away, and maybe I feel like I've shared too much, and then I close in,
right.
And I'm not fully engaged in the relationship like it was, right? So, like, I think that if I can go by Jay's, I can go pay for a therapy session. You know what I'm saying? If I can have all these, because if my mental health isn't together, I can't get my physical right. I can't have my spiritual right, my emotional, or anything else that emanates out from that. I can't make sure that it's whole, you know. So I encourage any of you all out there that's, like, you know, questioning whether you do so or not, find somebody to talk to that is a therapist that's licensed or unlicensed or seeking licensure, but find someone that is, and to your point, yes, it's good to talk to your friends, but someone that is a third party that may not be a friend, but that is trusted, that you can talk to. You know, a lot of times, so I went to go become a pastoral therapist because everybody wants to tell the pastor everything. And not all of them, my brothers and sisters in the ministry, are equipped. Right. And sometimes that's where the church hurt and all that stuff comes from. So I wanted to be more prepared to receive, so I can either help filter that stuff out and get them to the right person that they can talk to, or help them walk alongside of them where they are. And that's good, because our pastors, and that's a heavy job in itself, just to help make sure that people's spiritual mind is together and that they're really seeking kingdom building, you know, and not everything can be answered with a simple contest. Like I just told you about what unconditional positive regard. We sum that up in the church as just grace. but sometimes you need more words, you need more understanding to break it down, right? Yeah.
I think that's good information again, and everything that you're just talking about, hitting back onto mental health. Oh, if my mental, like you said, if my mental health is not there, how can I serve in my marriage and in my children? So I can't function correctly or as I want to be because I'm not feeling good about saying some things that are going on within me. So I need to get that stuff out so that way I can feel whole again. So I can be a better husband, a better father.
Right, and just in a real moment of transparency, y'all, because I'm just like that. I was looking at my closet. My closet is a wreck right now. Okay, I mean, it's like it looks like I have utterly no regard for the things I've been blessed with because just the way things are thrown in there. And now my mom has raised me to be very orderly. Everything has its place. In the kitchen, we call that mise en place. Okay, putting everything in its place. All right, and so I'm looking. I'm like, I can tell that something is really off. There's some things I need to readjust just because I've got clothes over here, I've got boxes over here open, and things just not where it needs to be. So take that for me. If on the outside is presenting that way, what is it presenting on the inside of my mind?
Yeah.
What is it presenting inside my gut? What is it presenting inside of my spirit?
That's good.
What is it presenting inside of my marriage?
That's good. That's good. So just to piggyback on what you're saying, just for clarification, are you correlating that your outward, I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now, your outward circle or your things that you have control over is maybe in some type of a disorganized disarray could be a direct reflection of what's going on the inside.
Right. It goes back to like what I was saying about that sock in the floor thing, right? It's not that's the issue. Because the question is, you have to keep asking the question, why? Why is it in the floor? Why didn't you put it away? What's going on? Where are you tired? Where's the laziness? Where's the frustration? What is happening that is allowing this to build up like that, right? And so now when you do all of that, then what are you going to do to address it?
Right.
It may be that outward thing first. Hang up all of these suits. Put all these shoes in the box, right? Then that's one step towards finding some order.
Right.
Person that is want to be serious about their health, their exercise, or whatever. Well, let's start with some stretching. Start with some walking. You know what I'm saying? Or their diet. Let's just drink more water today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Serious about your marriage. Let me tell my wife something positive today.
Yes.
I love you.
Absolutely.
You are the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. These grits are good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So those and then it starts back to your point about dominoes, man, and legacy. It starts to make those things all fall right into place.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's good information. Yeah, that's good.
Man, I've enjoyed this, man.
Anything else you want to touch on the third question there?
Yeah, I kind of left this out with the trauma. I'll say this. With me losing both my stepdad first, and then my dad, Heather was right there. My grandmother, Heather, was right there. So we tend to think about trauma in really big things. And there's a lot of other nuances that she was there, but I can look at those big things. After my stepdad died, I knew that she was it because her care and attention to me. Because of her care and attention to me.
That's right.
I want who loves me, man. I ain't got to chase nothing. If she wants to be where I am, then I want to be where she's at. That's it. And I want to make her know that I'm gonna be where she is, and when she needs me. And you remember that, right? And that's what builds the relationship. So that being present for each other in trauma is what I'm trying to say, and that just being present. You don't have to. She wasn't saying anything. She didn't do anything other than be with me.
Which says a lot.
A whole lot. A whole lot.
Yeah. Agree. 100% agree with that. Absolutely. So what I would like to do now, thank you for going through those three questions and the way that you
Absolutely.
answered. I think it was good dialogue. Of course, everybody has their different perspectives and different ways that they answer those questions. I think that you nailed it on the head. Thank you for that. So what I want to do now is just open up the discussion for anything that you want to talk about. Ask me some questions or anything that you want to talk about.
Um, Marman, we've talked about so much in those questions. I didn't think it was going to have that much in it,
Mm-hmm.
because I thought the questions were good and tailored. But I've enjoyed this conversation. I guess, then you might want to say, I want to answer this one off air, but where do you see this going? Because you got something great right here.
My only goal when I started this, and again we're in season 3.
Yeah.
My only goal was to reach men who may be going through the same things that I was going through, which is the ups and downs of marriage. That's it. So nobody's marriage is perfect. Everybody goes through ups and downs, but I wanted to make sure that whenever you are on the downward spiral or downward turn or whatever you want to call it, the roller coaster, that you know that you're not the only one that's going through it.
Absolutely.
So that way, I have these tailored questions, and everybody gets their own different perspectives. So like again, there's some things that you was hitting on that was touching me because I recognize everything things that you were saying. So I hope that it's being received by somebody else who may be listening or watching. That's my only goal. Where it goes from here is it's not in my hands. It's wherever God wants it to go.
Hallelujah.
So that's it. That's my answer.
Man, that's great, man. I just like to say, man, let me stay along for the journey as far as I can go with you, man. I think this is great. And how I can be of service, help you and your listeners, man, just let me know.
Absolutely.
This is really good. You're doing something that our community needs, and our community globally, as far as just men, period, to have this conversation and to know that somebody cares and somebody understands it. I don't have much else, man. I'm a little tapped at this point, man. It's been a whole lot to come out.
It was good. Like I said, it was good information. Like we did talk about a lot. When you first get the questions, you think that hey, it's gonna be a cut and dry. But eventually you get reminded of some things that happen in your life that you just want to expand upon, and then you'll say something that reflects me, and I'll remember something, and I'll say something, and you remember something. So it's just the way that it goes. We've been talking for a good minute now. But I don't want to put a time limit on anything. So that's the reason why I give you the opportunity to maybe want to revisit a question or bring up something else.
No, man. I'll go back to the first question around legacy. Brothers and sisters that are watching this, get that done. Get that button up. And the earlier you do that, you set those parameters for what you insure it, and you get things done at a reasonable rate, like getting life insurance early, and setting up those trusts and things. Because what you got to think about it's like a trust, kind of like it's like a bank account, and you paint it for what you want it to be, not what it is, and it gives you a roadmap, and you just keep dropping stuff in it. Like during the pandemic, we collected a bunch of art. Because you couldn't go nowhere.
Right.
But so we brought an art gallery to our house. We just started buying art, right? Now all those pieces are in the trust.
Right.
That now the kids have something. You know what I'm saying? One of these days it'll be really worth something,
Got you a Van Gogh or something?
No, I didn't get one of them. Got a Van Gogh poster. But, you start to build and also look at the things that you like and that you love. Make that part of what your legacy is, because it means something to you. Everybody's legacy is not going to look the same. It shouldn't. Right. It shouldn't. There's some parameters of things that you put in, and we're talking about fiduciary type thing that you should set up, like starting with the budget and all of that. But it doesn't have to look like anyone else's, and it's yours. But get active on it. Make it happen, because it's going to be key. You'll look up, like I said, in a lifetime will go by. 70 years, man, is what we promised, man.
Quick.
And you look up and it's here, and you have to say what what did I do with it? You know, did I take my talent? Did I bury it? Did I hold on to it, or did I go and multiply with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the podcast with me today. What I want to do now for just the remainder of time is to open the floor back up to you and for you to share with the people anything that you got going on, anything that you want to share, any social media handles or anything that you want to share that we can help promote whatever it is that you got going.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, anybody that's looking to connect with me, you can reach me on Instagram under Centers for Wellbeing. It is CTRWB on Instagram, and you can go to our website. It's CTRB Centers for Wellbeing.com. And we can help you with some services if you're needing premarital or marital counseling or individual work. We'll be glad to assist you with that. Join us at New Work Fellowship for service. Those that are here in the Middle Tennessee area, we meet twice a month when we're in the process of redoing what we're doing, where we're doing missional work.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting out and we're touching the community and loving on the young people around us and the families that are in need in that work and effort. And then we're corporately worshiping twice a month. We'll worship tomorrow. Our service is at 9 a.m. And it's like an hour and a half service, real quick. And we just come and share the love of Christ there. If you just want to check out some good cooking, man, go to my Facebook page, Omaràn Lee, Dr. Omaràn Lee on Facebook. You can find me, and you can follow our YouTube page, Cooking with Them Lees, hashtag DEMLEES. I love cooking. That is my passion. I'm getting ready. Actually, man, I entered into this cooking competition to try to get on with Carla Hall and win this $25,000, man, so I can get my burger company up and rolling, man. Okay. Yeah. So follow us, man, and check us out. Go and vote for me. That'll be live. Be watching on the social handles. We'll be pushing that out. And all other things, man. Love yourself and love each other, man. That's all I got.
I appreciate it. Again, Dr. Lee.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being on today's podcast with me. Good information, good things that were said. I hope somebody out there got or received a good message or a good word, some reflection that may be able to help you in your daily life or even your marriage. This is Lamar Dixon. This is the Men in Marriage podcast. This is episode number 4 of season number 3. Thank you.